The Yupik's overall population today is estimated at 24,000 people, and it's located southwestern Alaska between Bristol Bay and the Norton Sound. The language spoken today is majority English, but still a lot of the elders still speak the native Yupik language. And an interesting fact is how to say hello is "Waka."
Okay, so now we're going to talk about a little bit about how the community brings in money. So they do commercial fishing. So in the past, what they used to use for food is they would hunt larger sea animals, such as seals and walruses. And of course, they did the normal fishing of salmon, herring, and any other fish. And nowadays, it's mostly fish and crabs that they use, and they sell those to markets and other families. Also, traditional crafts. So a lot of the surrounding towns, there's many different cultures in that area, and all the native tribes have very similar traditions. And some of the tools that they use to do their traditions, such as smudging, which we'll go over in a little bit, they all use the same tools. So the people in the Yupik culture, mainly the elders, they make these tools and they sell these at trade shows. And mink and muskrat trapping. So of course they catch those so that they can utilize them for clothing. And tourism. That's not a big source of revenue for them. Because it's kind of uncommon to go up there because it's so cold, but they do get tourists. Some about their life. So hunting actually overlaps with the beginning of the school season. So it's not uncommon for families to take their children out of school for a week or two to go look for animals such as moose so that they can freeze and the meat will last them for a long time. Most of the people there, mostly the elders, are bilingual, and since the 1970s, the culture has really pushed for children to remain at least semi-fluent in that language. And the Yukon Cusco Quim Health Corporation, that is a corporation in that area that serves to the surrounding communities, and what they do is they provide health care. And they make sure that the interventions that they use are culturally, relevant. Okay, so some of the beliefs, one of their main beliefs is all creatures go through a cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. And how they utilize that today is, say if somebody in the family has passed, the next child born will be given the name of the family member who deceased. And then the Strengthening Our Culture as Yupik People program, that's the English translation. The actual name is really long. But this program is efforts by an organization, and what it is it's a education program that is incorporated into schools in the community. So they just want the Yupik children to be successful in Western education in the schools. So what they do is they, of course, teach them to be bilingual, speak the native language, and teach them about their traditions and why they still use the customs and why they still have the beliefs that they do today. Some of their customs are potlatch is a ceremony that they do in the wintertime after Christmas, and that is it's dedicated to the members of the community and family members who have passed on. And it's a huge community event. People, they dance, they exchange food, they play games. Smudging is shown in this picture right here. So that usually they burn herbs, and they have different herbs symbolize different things. So they burn them and they use a feather to kind of move it around the room. In the past, the use for that was kind of extreme. One example is if a woman had just finished her menstrual cycle, they would cleanse her, and they would also cleanse her husband's hunting equipment so that any bad juju was him. He would still be able to go out and have luck in finding some meat. So, and nowadays it is still used, but it's more in the form of cleansing oneself to get rid of all of the negative energy in your body and allow knowledge to come in.
So would they do that after a funeral ceremony after death? Do you read that anywhere?
Yeah, there's the thing that I mostly read is like if somebody is having like a hard time, like feeling stressed out or something, a tragic accident has happened, that's usually when they do it.
I read some as well, that any kind of tribal gathering where, you know, if the elders are going to sit and make a decision for the community or discuss something, they'll do that kind of like a preparing their minds kind of thing for what they're about to do.
And then the dance is very much alive in this culture still. This first dance, Kif-Keek, is not done anymore, but in the past, it was used to ask for something from an elder in the community or maybe the head of a household. For example, like if a person wanted to inherit an item, this is a dance that they would use to pray and persuade that person to give it to them. This one, which I cannot say, is still used today, and that is a dance of prayer. And in the past, it symbolized they were praying for either a fruitful hunt or prayed that they easily found things like wood, berries, food, all of that stuff. So, and this is one of the ceremonial dances.
Do we know if we have sound on this?
We should.
I'll have it up.
Give me a minute. Let me.
Okay. Sorry about that.
So, we will have to, how do we get off to? What did it do?
Speaker headphones.
Right, oh, how do you change that?
Is it because
Okay,
should I open it?
for now, let's just go on with just watching the movement, but for the
Okay.
next group, if you'll need sound, I'll call David and ask him to come help us out, okay? Because if we pause for him to come up, it's going to take time. I'm sorry.
Would you like to do it along with them then? If you want.
That's not it.
And what was really neat is that the feathers that they use for dancing and for smudging, they all, different colors represent different things. So for smudging, they would rather use a raven's feather. And if they can't find one, they usually use a black feather because in their culture, a raven symbolizes like the bringing of light, of a new life, of good luck.
So y'all could do this before each test and
For sure. But yeah.
I like the
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
We got it.
We can say that at the end.
Okay.
Save it till the end.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so for our occupational profile, we chose Bonnie Great, and she's a 45-year-old woman who suffers from obesity and lives with her 4 children in Utah, Alaska. She's here to increase her cardiovascular endurance, so she can participate in things like the smudging ceremonies and the potlatch and all of those community events, as well as take care of her family by cooking and cleaning and just interacting with them. Because she says that it's really hard for her to get out of bed for long periods of time. So that's a big issue. She also really is worried about falling. So we figured that increasing her endurance and being able to make her stand for longer or help her stand for longer periods of time, that would eventually help with increasing her balance as well. She has a strong history of cooking and tribal rituals within the community and also within her family household that is very important to her. And she's no longer able to do them due to her obesity. And the desired outcomes for her are to increase her endurance, like I said previously. She would also like to go out and hunt with the community during that time whenever all the children are going out to look for moose as well before school. She's very close to her family and friends, and that's her good support system. And she hopes to increase it even more the longer that she can be out in the community.
So with this tribe, do the women also go out and hunt? I presume so. If you said
They would go look for moose in the beginning of fall. Correct?
It's
And
the
then-
entire family.
Yeah, it's like a full
everyone
family
leaves for a week.
activity.
It's a
And then
family
comes back.
event.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then for this, we use the biomechanical frame of reference to remediate because we would just be increasing her endurance throughout time.
Okay, so we, one of the requirements for this project was to create an activity synthesis and then recommend what the occupational synthesis would be for our client. So for our occupation, the one we chose to address was cooking because that's a really important thing for Bonnie and her family and her community. And the performance skill required for cooking we decided to address was endurance. She needs to be able to stand at her kitchen counter for 30 minutes to an hour just for minimal tasks. And she needs to be able to stand, not just for that, but just to participate in lots of the different cultural traditions in her community and with her family. So our goal was that the client will rise from sit to stand independently, walk to the kitchen, and remain standing at the kitchen counter for 5 minutes without leaning on the counter and without rest 4 out of 5 times within 3 weeks. So that's our initial goal, and then to grade that up, we would have the client stand for 10 minutes at the counter with 1 45-second rest if she needs it. And to grade it down, we would have the client stand at the counter for 3 minutes without rest, but she's allowed to prop against the counter. Go ahead. So the recommended occupational synthesis, so working on standing endurance is going to increase Bonnie's functionality in cooking just across the board. And as she learns this skill and continues to progress, she'll be able to participate in cultural traditions with her family and her community, and will, synthesize the occupation on her own as she applies her standing endurance skills that she's learning or relearning with us to other occupations other than cooking, such as like participating in the family hunt or the traditional dances for the culture.
Okay, now we're on to our quiz questions. So question number 1, what is the most important single industry in the Yupik community? Fishing.
Kind of the same thing.
Does the whole family go fishing too?
I didn't read anything that was as
No.
integral to
Yeah.
that's more of like, that's where the commercial industry is now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not, fishing was a big part of the culture through time, but now that's the main revenue source for the community, and it's not necessarily a focal point of like cultural tradition.
Okay.
More for the
And-
economy.
Pardon me?
Yeah, it's more for the the economy.
Uh-huh. And so they still do go whaling and, isn't that what you're
I
saying?
didn't see anything about whaling, but they in the past they would hunt seal and walrus.
Oh, seal and walrus, and they still do that?
No, I didn't see anything about that. They just still now it's moved to salmon, herring, and crab.
Okay.
Okay, question 2, true or false? Smudging is a ceremonial Yupik activity that is still utilized today.
And regarding smudging, so anyone can engage in smudging? It could be men, women, or is it only the shaman?
No,
I think
believe-
it's anyone.
Anyone can?
Yeah, they sell kits online. I was looking this up. And that's part of the traditional crafts that they make, and they sell between different communities around the area, because that is a common practice between all of the neighboring communities up there.
Okay.
From what I read, if you're performing the ceremony for like a personal reason or like a family reason, I don't think it necessarily matters who performs it. But if it's like, you know, a tribal gathering or a gathering of the elders, I think it would be the most senior person.
Okay, what is the traditional friendly greeting in the Yupik language? Yeah. Right.
Okay, how do you spell that though?
So it's actually WAQAA.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Yupik school-age children may miss a week of school to participate in which activity?
No.
B. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's okay. Oh no, I was like just happy.
Okay, and last one. The purpose of dancing in the Yupik culture includes all of the following except. Yeah. Okay, should we try it again?
No, all about that.
Is the sound gonna work now? Are you gonna try it?
So what about the dancing?
Oh, okay. Let's try a video.
Dr. Mona, how much time do we have?
You got a minute or two, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I made a traditional Yupik bread. It's called fry bread. It's
Okay.
it's normally made with seal oil, but I did not have any. So I used the modern day recipe.
So we found some very interesting recipes. I know one had called for like a cup of, what was it? It was reindeer fat.
Reindeer
fat.
fat.
And moose oil.
So I don't have enough for every person to have a whole little cake, but just break off a piece as you want it, and then if we have extra, I'll pass it back around.
It's very similar to like a funnel cake.
Yeah, or like a baby cake.
Good, good. Yeah.
So I have some questions here. When you say bilingual, they speak English and their traditional language.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And their traditional language is called?
It's a native Yupik language,
Okay.
And it's written in a Latin text.
Latin?
Yeah, because I was looking at it and I was like, oh.
Okay.
But yeah, they said generally most of the elders speak it today, and they want the children to be bilingual.
Yeah, that's one of those programs that they had implemented that they were trying to in the school system, where like here, you know, a lot of our primary and school age children, they are taught Spanish days of the week and stuff like that. It's the same, but they do that their traditional Yupik language, and they explain traditions and why they still do those traditions today.
There's a really big push among the Yupik community right now to kind of re-engage the younger generation back into the cultural traditions. So they're trying to do like a dual education kind of thing where they're learning what we would consider modern, knowledge and modern technology, but also still participating in the reemergence of the smudging
And the
is
dances.
a big part of
Yeah.
that, trying to reincorporate and keep the culture still alive through the younger generations.
Yeah. Okay. Here is.
Do you have more?
But
We
we
were
were
just
gonna
gonna
play
show
the
the
video.
video, so it has
Yeah.
sound.
Okay.
Yeah. And do they use any particular bird feathers, or do they say it could be anything?
Oh, so all the feathers symbolize different things. The one that I read about the most was about the feather they use for smudging. They prefer to use a raven's feather. If they cannot find a raven's feather, they use a black feather just to symbolize. Because in their culture, the raven symbolizes like a bringing of the light. So they just use that as a reminder to keep going forward.
Isn't the raven kind of like a ominous thing in our culture?
Yeah, but in our culture that it is.
Yeah. Western culture, it's like a symbol of death, but not to native cultures.
No surprise. Our frozen yogurt is the same.
I think there's a couple extra if anybody wanted
I
some
think
more.
they sort of belong to the same family, but they do.
But they're both graveyards. So you go see those movies graveyards.
Yes,
I got
Can we just explain the game real quick?
Okay, so this dance continues. We had one more slide, but we're kind of out of time. This is a common game that's been played by children over the centuries whenever they're not moose hunting or in school now. And it's called Squirrel and Dog. Basically, you can see the instructions, but you would get in groups of 3. One person would be a squirrel, and 2 people would put their arms out and be a tree. And the squirrel would get in the middle of the tree, and then there's 2 people left over at the end. One's a squirrel and one's a dog. And it's kind of like musical chairs, but squirrels and trees, and the dog's chasing them. And so basically there can only be 1 squirrel in a tree at a time, and there's 1 extra squirrel. So if the dog catches the squirrel, they turn into the dog. Game continues, goes on. It sounds fun. We don't have time to play it.
We thought about playing it,
But yeah, that's been played since the beginning of their culture, and it's continued on.
And so, as far as so is this a game that children play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Schools, okay. In terms of religion, are they animists? Are they Christians? What is?
So they do believe in rebirth after. I don't know if they come back as a certain.
So what they still do today is so if they, for example, like the moose, whatever's left over, they try to return to water to kind of symbolize them, you know, beginning their afterlife and then being reborn.
Okay. But you didn't really find anything that said, because usually the origins of, or rather the religious beliefs of a lot of the American Indian tribes, they were animists. Then in the U.S., mainland U.S., the Spanish came and converted them to Christianity. So it's a combination of animism and Christianity. But as clinicians, those are some things that you'll need to pay attention to.
I've read some stuff about Catholicism actually.
Yeah.
Which would kind of make sense if they have like.
I didn't read about a specific religion, but because of where they're located, there was a bunch of Russian influence, and so I think the religion kind of became an incorporation of that and their original beliefs.
Right. And the reason I'm asking is, so you know how sometimes we have certain terms that we say, oh, this is a good Christian man. Right. And frequently in the clinic, you see an elderly person and therapists go, oh, this is a good Christian man. Now, those kinds of statements based on people's religions can be a little negative, so you'll have to be very careful about, you don't need to ask them, but you need to be aware of their cultural background and what their religious beliefs may be, just so that you can be mindful and not come out in any way negative towards your clients. All right? I want you to be engaged, so keep asking questions so that this can be a two-way learning process. Okay? All right. So, any questions? or have I asked all the questions?
Wait, I do have a question. So you had a slide that was false about courtship. What is it? Can they marry whoever, or is it just within the tribe? Are they chosen, arranged marriage? Sorry, you probably don't know. And
I didn't see anything about that at all. I think in that part of their, I think they're very much with modern times now.
Yeah.
I didn't read anything about that in the cultural heritage either, so my assumption would be if it wasn't important enough to mention, it's probably not that important.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.